What's up, guys? My name is Jason Tuckness. I'm 36 years old. I live in Huntington Beach, California, and I'm currently living with IPF, which is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Idiopathic means unknown, pulmonary means lung, fibrosis means scarring. I've had a lot of people that know me personally and know my family and know our story and what we're going through that have asked me to start doing like a video blog or YouTube videos. So I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see if maybe, if anything, this can help somebody else. There's a lot of ways to look at this. Right now I'm hoping to be put on a transplant list. I'm in talks with USC Keck Center for transplants. I would need a double lung transplant. So, you could look at this in a lot of ways. For me, it's been scary. It's been eye-opening, but it's also been a blessing in disguise, because a lot of people go through life and they never really know, how people really feel about them. You have friends, you have family that say that they love you and they die for you and they do anything for you, and their metal never really gets tested. I've been in a situation where I was hospitalized for the first time in my life for a week. I got my career stolen from me. I've been a painter for 20 years. I spray cabinets and houses and do construction and drywall, and it's hard, tough, shitty work, but it was something that I was very, very good at, something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the brotherhood that I had, showing up to work every day and poking fun at each other all day, and and I went home and I felt like I put in my effort, my all to get what little we had. We do fine. I live in a house in California. I made okay money. I worked for a good company, and I had, that cared about me and my family. So I was lucky in a lot of senses, but all that was taken away from me, because for me to go back to a painting career would mean that I'd be injuring my lungs by inhaling fumes and drywall dust and wood chips and all that. And even though I did wear respirators and protection while I was spraying and did everything OSHA required, and said that would make me safe, you're still walking around in an area where there's people welding in another room, or, after you're done spraying and you walk out the door, the paint fumes just don't magically go away, So they're doing the best that they can to protect us on site. But, I'm at 36. I shouldn't be dealing with this. I obviously had a genetic disposition to get something like this. But as soon as the doctors hear that I was a construction worker, and specifically a painter, they say, "Oh, we get it. That's why." So, if you work around paint or anything like that, please protect yourself. But anyways, getting back to what I was talking about before, there's like two ways that I could have handled this, and I still can be handling this. Is one, when I found out, it was devastating. I went from working, 5 to 7 day weeks, 8 to 10 hour days, where I'd work, 8 hours on my normal job, and then I'd work weekends on my side jobs, and sometimes I'd work evenings with my buddies for my normal jobs on their side jobs. And that's just kind of the hustle you've got to do when you live in Orange County, California. Everybody likes to talk about California and how expensive it is and how nice it is to have money, but you don't understand. We work 20 hours a day to live here and to live in this nice area. We don't have the opportunity to get off of work after an 8-hour day. go crack a couple cold beers and, you know, sit back and have a nice bonfire. I lived in the South. It's a wonderful lifestyle, but California's the place for me. I do miss the sense of community that I did get in the South, how I knew all my neighbors, and during Christmas, they would show up at my door with cookies on a plate with a Christmas card. All our kids, there was no fences in the backyard, and the kids ran from one side of the street to the other. But, you know, I have a sense of privacy that I enjoy out here as well, too. So there's something to be said about everywhere. But, you know, I was scared when I found out. I went from working full-time to never being hospitalized, never having an IV in my life. Working construction, you don't get, you know, a lot of healthcare benefits or anything like that. It's a labor position where, you know, you just kind of, you get what you get, and it's not anybody's fault. That's just the way it's the way it is. So eventually I got on the dreaded Obamacare, but, you know, I'm happy to have it or I wouldn't be here right now. And I was walking up the stairs from the beach after it was Sunday. I'd worked all week. I'd worked all weekend. I had my best friend Brian down from Santa Maria, California, visiting me with a couple of his friends. And I had to use the elevator to go up the stairs. I coughed so hard all day that by the nighttime I couldn't talk anymore. I was completely hoarse. And I guess during the night I was coughing so hard, my wife and my son were scared and talked over me, and made the decision that the next morning when my alarm woke me up to get up and try and get to work 15 minutes early like my boss likes me to, but usually I got there right on time or a couple minutes late. They said that they weren't going to let me go to work. And I mean, I don't like doctors. I don't like getting stuck with stuff. Nobody does. I was raised by my grandparents who, my grandpa used to not take his blood pressure medication until he needed it, because he said that he didn't want to come dependent on it. And, you know, I was raised to believe that, you know, even if you are sick, you don't start falling apart until a doctor tells you you're sick. Because your brain is, for some reason, mentally, your brain is you're just gonna keep doing what you're doing. You know, and then as soon as you find out you're sick, you start deteriorating. So I was scared, honestly. I was just scared to go to the doctor. I didn't want to figure out what was really going on because I knew it was something serious. But then I found out. And of course I had my breakdown moment where I broke down, and because it's a tough thing to hear from a doctor, hey, why didn't you come to me earlier? These exact words were, why didn't you come to me earlier? My friend, you have pulmonary fibrosis. This is a fatal diagnosis. You have chronic lung disease. And this is just going to get worse as time goes on. Are you married? Yes. Do you have children? Yes. How many? 3? Yes. And then he just silently looked at me, and with a look of concern. He's my pulmonologist, but now I use him as my primary care physician. But his name is Dr. Ayub. He's a good guy, and he takes the best care he can of me. But he said, my friend, I'm gonna do everything I can for you. I need you to be more responsible with your own health. I'm gonna leave you alone, and I'm gonna let you discuss this with whoever you need to discuss this with. Because at this time I was by myself. My wife was at home with the 3 kids. I was hospitalized for 6 days because I had been walking around with pneumonia for 3 months, because I was so used to breathing so terribly that I didn't know I had pneumonia. That's why I was coughing so much. And when I went in, it was just, they thought that it was because I had pneumonia. So after they saw how low my breathing really was, when you measure your oxygen, it's supposed to be in the high 90s. I was walking around in the 80s and the high 70s. And, for most people, that means your major organs, your brain, you're not getting enough oxygen in your bloodstream to support those. But for 10 years, I've been dealing with this because I've had symptoms for years and years. And, my wife and my kids would make fun of me. My fingers are like bubbled at the end. That's a sign of a major medical condition when it comes to your lungs. I thought I just had weird fingers that one day. I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day. I smoked Marlboro Reds, and I quit 6 years ago thinking that was gonna help. If I just quit smoking, then that's what it is. It's smoking. I can't go upstairs because I'm smoking. I helped coach my son's Pop Warner football team. And, when you're working construction, you work out, you work hard, and you're lifting heavy stuff. When I lived in Tennessee, I worked with a furniture company where we moved furniture. And, we picked up big marble tables. And, I'm kind of a tough, strong guy. I'm like 5'10", 200 pounds. So I'm kind of a stout dude. So, I've always been able to kind of hold my own and work hard, and things didn't gas me. You know what I mean? Picking something up or doing something strenuous didn't gas me. I was fast because but I noticed working with my son's football team, you actually have to get down into a 3-point stance, and you've got to show them the drills. You got to do bear crawls. You got to do all this crazy stuff. I was starting to get winded a few years ago. And the other coaches would walk up to me and be like, dude, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah, it's just, I just quit smoking. So, I think I'm going to be like, oh, it's going to be cool. 7 years, they say, your lungs are brand new. It's why, that might work with cigarettes, but what I have, there's no magic cure. Basically, what's going on is scars are forming over the parts of my lungs that take the oxygen that I breathe in and convert it into oxygen into my blood. So eventually, my lungs will be so scarred that they won't work. Also, I have phlegm and all kinds of gunky stuff that are in my lungs that usually your body expels. I'm not sure the exact medical term for it at the moment. I'll get back to you with it, but there's something going on inside my lungs where instead it just all settles in the bottom, and that creates bacterial and all kinds of other infections that could happen in my lungs. So because of all these risk factors, the scarring accelerates. There's only one medicine known to actually help my condition. It's called Esbriet. I'm taking it now. It lowers my immune system. I have to wear SPF 50 sunblock because if I get too much sunlight, I develop a huge rash that will cover my body, and I'll have to go in the hospital and stop taking it until the rash goes away. And it could severely hurt my liver. There's all kinds of really bad side effects to it. But if it gets me to my transplant, then it's all worth it, right? I also have to take a steroid. What's the name of the steroid, babe? Prednisone. I have to take prednisone every day. I don't have to, and actually one of the prerequisites of me, even being on the transplant list is to get off or as low as possible of the prednisone. The problem is I recently had a biopsy of my lungs, which I regret. It's something that was optional, but it was something that felt like should have been done to make sure, because my lungs are also showing like cystic activity where there's like cysts growing, and that could be just part of the scarring, you know what I mean? The scars are showing up as cysts. So, but they went in 3 different spots in my rib cage, one in the top, one down here, and one behind me. And they cut 3 lobes of my lung out, 3 wedges of my lung out to test each one for cancer and all a slew of other things, which everything came back negative, which is really good news because that means I'm healthy enough to be on the transplant list. If I would have had cancer and all this other stuff, we would have had to resolve that before I could even talk to Keck. But I already went into my first interview with the transplant team. They seem very encouraging to me that a transplant's a real possibility. I have to start doing testing, and I'm scheduled to start doing that. They're adjusting my medication. I'm going to be looked at by some of the best doctors around in this field in my area at USC. So that's awesome and amazing. And, all this going on, like I said before, I could be beside myself. I could be depressed. I have 5 different antidepressants that I haven't even opened, that I've been prescribed by my doctor, because generally most people that find this stuff out get depressed and down and all that stuff. Like, I don't feel it. Like, I'm lucky. I'm probably, maybe a little I'm not in denial, but I've seen this in a whole different way. I've had a really, really, really tough life. My parents weren't around. My grandparents raised me, along with just about every other aunt and uncle in my family. I did a lot of moving around. I had a lot of wondering as a kid, who really cared about me at all, and most people never get that answer. Most people go through their lives and they never know for 100% sure, besides, of course, the person they marry or their kids, or sometimes even their kids are, they don't know. But I've got answers. I've had friends come out of the woodwork that I didn't know gave a shit about me. I had a buddy, like when I was I had to change careers. Me and my uncle came up with this great idea that since I can't paint anymore, let's get rid of your work truck. Let's sell your tools, and whatever you're missing, he's gonna finance me a nice car, and you start doing Uber. And you just work Uber because you don't have to get up. You just drive people around, and you know what I mean? We'll figure it out, is what he said. By the end of the day, he had me driving to Toyota of Huntington Beach, and I was in a not brand new, the newest car I've ever had, with leather seats and all this great stuff, just so it's attractive for people to get in my car and they want to ride with me. and it's been working out. I had a slew of issues with the car. My engine blew up on it within the first couple months, but for some reason, someone was looking out for me. We had this warranty that we had that replaced the engine completely, zero deductible. So I have a brand new engine in this awesome, amazing car that I have. Brand new turbocharger went in, a brand new intercooler. And then a couple weeks after I got it, but it was in the shop for a good month. My wife's dad went out of his way to help us out while we were struggling. I am a part of like a comic community of, I read comic books. I'm a comic nerd. I have been since I was a kid. If you know me at all, you remember my old room. I had toys that I would glue to my desk in different poses and battles and stuff like that. And people would bring me like street lamps and benches to put in there and stuff. And I always pretended like I could draw, but I never could. I really wish I could. But, I had this comic community that I have no idea where I'd be without them. I have a couple partners on a business that I did that did a charity auction for me where they donated books. I sent in some books. People that I didn't even know sent in books, and they all sold them. And that's what they do. They like 6 days, 7 days a week, they auction off comic books online, and they donated 100% of the proceeds to my family. They sold all these books and raised like $1,300, $1,400 and just sent it to me. Now, who does that? I have an artist buddy named Kyle that does custom art and owns his own thing. He donated 10% of the entire week's sales to me. Like anything, and posted it, said, hey, if 10% of everything I make on this and 50% of this, and and just sent me the money. I have friends that I've known since I was a little kid that you know people when you're 12 and 10 and that you grew up with in high school, but you don't really know that they care about you, you know what I mean? Because, like, I care about people, but the world's rough, and people suck. So, like, I had friends, like, just that I haven't talked to or seen in years, see that I was struggling and, like, go find a GoFundMe that my uncle made for me and donate, like, $200. I have friends that make, like, on a limited income, sick themselves. They get like $600 a month. Give me 60 of it. That's huge. You know what I mean? That $60 was like probably meant more to that person than like, the fucking, excuse my language, than the $1,000 that, Oprah would have, you know what I'm trying to say. It's just, I've used this, somehow I've seen this as a positive because I've got to see a lot of things that I never saw before. When you grow up rough and you grow up in a rough area and you don't get a lot of love in your life, you tend to be cynical. You tend to expect the worst and hope for the best. And that was always me. Like, I never trusted people. I'm not the guy that was like the person that like was happy-go-lucky. I was very skeptical of many people, especially when I first meet you. I wouldn't trust people alone in my house. I still kind of don't. But it's opened my eyes to see that people do care. I've seen a lot of beauty in this world that I never saw before. Um, I felt, I've actually felt loved by people that I care about. I know for a fact that people care about me. Um, I was in the hospital during Christmas, and during this time is when my car was in the shop too. So during December, like it was like the worst case scenario. It's a perfect storm. My car's in the shop because the engine blew up and I can't work, and I'm worried about Christmas presents. Luckily, we have I have great in-laws and family that took care of our kids. They didn't know any different when it came time to open presents and such. But for me, it was terrible. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. I didn't know how I was going to put food in the fridge. And all I could think about while laying in that hospital is getting out and somehow fixing it. I have a friend that I painted his house. I was trying to get into the Indian princesses, and me and my daughter are part of the YMCA adventure guides, because it's not the Indian princesses anymore. I guess that's not the right term to use. But I could never really go on outings with them because my daughter has primary immune deficiency, meaning that her immune system is compromised. She can't, if someone has a cold and she catches it, she ends up in the hospital for 2 weeks. And that's something we deal with too. And we've dealt with that since she was born. We're good with that. We've got it down to a wrap. She's the toughest chick. She's gonna be, whoever she marries is in trouble. She's a beautiful little girl, and she inspires me, honestly, to be strong. But I think I went through a lot with her and watched this little girl kick this thing's ass so much that I can't help but do what I'm doing now. So, anyways, I'm in the hospital, and all that's going through my head is how I'm feeling my family right now. And I can't, I'm part of this Indian princess thing that I could do limitedly, and even more so now, because not only is my daughter primarily immune, but now I walk from the couch to the bathroom on oxygen, and my oxygen drops from like 92 to 70 something, which is dangerous, but I'm so used to it. It's whatever. It's Tuesday. But anyways, I'm laying up in the hospital, and my wife says, Chris is coming over. He has a present for you. And I'm thinking it's because when you're in the Indian princesses, you get these leather little vests, and the stick that you hold that you do your campfire thing with. And I'm thinking it's that, because I can't really, he asked me, he's all, dude, do you have your vest and this? And I'm like, nah, I can't really afford that right now, bro. We're just all trying to get stuff together. And Chris, he's a great guy. We're friends from Facebook and jiu-jitsu, and but we're not super close, He's just a really good guy that for some reason has always followed me and looked out for me. He's been this guardian angel dude for me that invited me to the Indian princess. Showed up to the hospital, and he had an envelope, and there was over $2,000 check in there that was almost to the cent what we needed to finish paying our rent and our bills. And it was a collection that they donate to a needy family at that time of year. And just so happened, it happened for me. in my family. So I have seen this entire situation in that light, as where I've got to see a whole different side of the world, and I've never got to see before. I still know it's an ugly place, and I still know it's not great for everybody. And I still know that bad stuff happens, but I'm very grateful for the people that I have in my life. I'm very grateful for the family that has come out of the woodwork. That I was an idiot when I was a kid. I made a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad choices. I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out in like 9th grade and went to school and went to work. But somehow all this worked out. And it's working out. And as bad as my health is, as long as I can keep my focus on the positive, I'm happy. I'm happy. If everything was done right now, I married the woman of my dreams. I know for a fact my wife loves me. Most people go their entire life looking for that one person. I met her when I was 21. And we got married a year later, and she's sitting right there with my daughter. I know for a fact that I have friends that would bend over backwards for me. My best friend drove 300 miles and just to hang out with me for a week when he found out what was going on. And I could tell just looking at this dude, like he's besides himself, like problem solve, like how do I fix this? Like, cause guys, we fix things. That's us. We're fixers. You know what I mean? It's broke, fix it. Give me a hammer, right? Women, like, how do I make you feel better, right? So there's no fixing it. There's no magic cure. Some of the homeopathic things that people have suggested to me, they'll help some of the stuff. Like I have major inflammation in my lungs, so the turmeric and the stuff like that works. But there's no magic cure that's gonna make this go away. This is real deal. This is what's happening. There's exercise. I'm trying to walk around the block and stuff like that, but it gets me lightheaded and I could pass out. And if I pass out and if I lose too much oxygen, it can cause brain damage and all this stuff. So I can't just slowly do push-ups and stuff like that to kind of bring my lungs back. That's not how my condition works. My lungs are at a stage where they're damaged and they're not coming back. There's no cure. Best case scenario is I get as much out of my lungs that I can, and then get a transplant. Because transplants, they have shelf lives. Once I get my transplant, I'm going to be on a number of medications every day for anti-rejection and all that kind of stuff. So, and then, there's an 80% success rate for the first year. I think it's 60 after the second, and then third it's 50-50, and it goes down as it goes forward. But most people, from what the doctor tells me, that you make it through your third year, you're home free, meaning that the problem I took it as the problem is people not taking care of themselves properly are taking their medicines or drinking while on medicine. I'm never going to be able to drink again, which is fine. I'm not a big drinker. And because the alcohol interferes with the medicines you'd have to take, or they start doing whatever, and they don't make it past their third year. But people that are dedicated enough to adjust their life in a fashion that is conducive to being a living person with a transplant, then I'm just gonna have to be healthy and follow the doctor's rules. I'm gonna have to do what they say. I have a lot of reasons to live. So anyways, I was asked to do this. I've been bugged to do this, so I'm doing it. I don't know if this helps anybody. I don't know if this will help anybody. I hope it does. But anyways, signing out.